Member for West Vancouver Capilano.
Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for that overview. I would like to remind perhaps MLA members that 70% of these new rental units built under this NDP government have actually come from the demolition of existing rental units and not new construction. Now, the Premier's housing flub is harming families. When Victoria Walsh was expecting a child, the last thing she expected was a crippling 20% hike in rent. But that is exactly what's happened under this NDP government. Victoria is outraged, and I quote, "My baby shouldn't be treated like a roommate, and I feel it's very unfair. 20% is just not a reasonable increase. It's way too much," end quote. So despite her plea for help, the only response from the housing minister is to merely shrug his shoulders and say that that rent increase is permitted. There's nothing he can do. And the Premier responded, quote, "It seems strange to me," unquote. Talk about a lack of empathy. So will the Premier tell Victoria why he is allowing her to be punished by a 20% rent increase for having a baby?
Minister of Housing.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and certainly I can imagine how stressful that is for that family to have a child and then have their landlord increase their rent by 20%. I mean, I think we all in this House can agree that that is unacceptable, and I certainly hope that that landlord considers their actions because that's not what the Tenancy Act was designed to do. It's certainly the same as when the opposition was on this side of the House. Nothing has changed there, Honourable Speaker. This is a case where I think the landlord should do the right thing and ensure that the contract that's in place is targeted to the people that it's supposed to be targeted to and not to young families.
Member for West Vancouver Capilano, supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, appreciating that it's difficult for this family is not enough. And the Premier should not have actually found this strange because it was when he was housing minister, the exact same thing happened to another young family where their rent was hiked when their daughter was born a year ago. Back then, the response from the then housing minister was, quote, "It seems bizarre," end quote. So how clueless and ineffectual that this is just as lost today. Now, Patrick Marsden has called the now Premier to take action back in March of 2022, and today he says, quote, "I basically got a form letter back from the then minister, now the Premier, and saw no action," end quote. So when a major housing flub, just like with newborn children, causing families to be evicted from stratas, the Premier is making life even worse for struggling families with rentals. So, Mr. Speaker, will the Premier finally take responsibility for the ongoing housing crisis and explain to young families like Patrick and Victoria why he has failed to deliver results for them?
Minister of Housing.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And again, I know that this is a challenging situation for this family. That is not what the rental tenancy laws in this place are supposed to be about. They're the same. They're the same. They're the same laws that were in place when the previous government was in place. Honourable Speaker, again, my call to this landlord is to ensure that they do the right thing and support the people that are living in that unit and not use that 20% agreement, private agreement that they had in place for the wrong purpose. Honourable Speaker, we have been supporting renters in historic ways on this side of the House, Honourable Speaker. When we put in the caps to ensure rents can be not increased dramatically, we did that. Members. Minister will continue.
Honourable Speaker, we did that because we knew
that the challenges we're facing right now are high. And, you know, I just find it a little rich hearing from the opposite side. When they let rents go as high as they wanted, they thought it was a great thing. In fact, the leader of the official opposition, in fact, was just talking about that very thing on the radio, talking about how putting the caps for rent increases is wrong because it's going to hurt the private sector, Honourable Speaker. He was talking about that. So I just don't understand the line of questioning today, Honourable Speaker, when we've taken historic steps, built, we got 14,000 rental units being built this year, Honourable Speaker. 2,000 units a year were being built when they were in government. We have 14,000, Honourable Speaker. And the member also made an assertion that the units are, that somehow units are being displaced when we're building new units. Honourable Speaker, just for student housing alone, Honourable Speaker, he says here we go because he knows the facts already, but I'm going to tell him again. Honourable Speaker, 130 beds of student housing, Honourable Speaker, that they built in the 16 years that they were here, Honourable Speaker. We built 7,700 units, and what that does, Honourable Speaker?
Member.
Honourable Speaker, what that means is students are going to be able to live closer to campus, which means that they'll be able to save some money from transportation and other costs, and it means it will create more capacity in communities. That's just one step, Honourable Speaker, but I am happy to talk the entire question period on this topic because it's such an important topic.